Let's do it.
So we are recording right now.
Okay, so I'm going to do a gavel tap. I will now call to order the August 12th meeting of the Middleton Planning Board. Please be advised that all meetings are video recorded and broadcast live to the public. Who do we have here?
Does everyone want to state their name, or do you want to just read through the list?
Hi, Dave. Anthony DiGregorio here.
Thank you, Anthony.
Jeff Garber is here.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Jeff Garber.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, it's Brian York.
Hi, Brian.
Hey,
Dave, Brian, Carol.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Okay, how are you doing?
Good. Good to hear from you. Anybody else?
Joe Kitka is. Did you already say your name, Joe?
I didn't. David, I'm here. This is Joe.
I saw you, Joe Kickta. So, Katrina, who do we have to appoint as alternates?
So I would recommend Anthony, only because Joe still hasn't been reappointed by the Board of Selectmen, and they're due to reappoint him next week. So he's just here watching, I guess.
Advisory. All right. Well, Joe, thank you for being here. So I move to appoint Anthony DiGregorio as our alternate member and a full voting member of the planning board.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, you can see the agenda, right, Dave? Do you have a visual?
I do, and I've been through it. I do have a visual on your agenda.
Okay.
So are we calling, first we have to go through the minutes. Has everybody who voted on the minutes read the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any questions, comments, or dissensions on that?
no, not from York.
All right. So if not, I will entertain a motion to approve the July 8th, 2020 minutes of the Middleton Planning Board. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second to approve the July 8th, 2020 minutes of the Planning Board as compiled. Should we poll the Planning Board?
Anthony DiGregorio, I'm an aye.
Mr. Gaba?
I'm an aye.
Brian?
Which one?
How many do we have?
Aye.
I think we only have one.
Brian, Carol, there's only two of us, but we will take over the world soon. Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Okay, approved.
Mr. York?
Aye.
Right. That sounds like it's approved. Okay, so the first, do we have Jill? Is Jill in?
Yes, so I am going to appoint her as a panelist.
Okay, there's a lot less activity. And for the record, you have changed the application here, where there's a lot less activity from non-board members. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the Zoom format?
Yeah, so the Zoom format, so I think we should comment on that.
Okay. Yes, it's a webinar format, which I'm trying out because many of the other communities in Massachusetts, the boards and committees have changed to the webinar format, because what it does is you could take your board and have them, you call them panelists, and so that's all you see up on the screen. The other attendees can attend. They can ask questions with this question and answer button, and you can, if you want them to speak, you can actually let them speak. So this is good for the times when we have a big crowd. Tonight we don't have a big crowd, it wasn't really necessary tonight. Everyone could have their video up there and it wouldn't be a problem, but when there's a large crowd, it gets very confusing. Someone's cat meows and all of a sudden their video pops up and I can't see planning board members up on the screen anymore.
It's a little too democratic an application is what you're saying.
Yes.
All right. I also noticed on the agenda you have the June 3rd, 2020 minutes, and we have
Yes.
the July 8th, 2020 minutes. So I just want to note that.
You know what? I can put them again on the next agenda. That was an oversight. Whenever I do the agenda, I take the old agenda, change the dates, and add all the new things, and I just forgot to change the
No,
minutes.
we approved the July 8th minutes, so I don't think that's in controversy. I just want you to note that to the extent the record is created, it's not June 3rd, it's July 8th.
Okay.
I think we're good there.
All right. Jill, can you hear us?
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Okay. So Jill is here. Now I'm going to figure out remote control. Give mouse control to Jill Mann. I should have switched to 329. There we go. Okay, so now we are ready, unless you want me to put the agenda back up so you can read the agenda item.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Well, this
So
is
I
for
can-
the-
now,
this is for
can't
the chair.
I can control your screen, so can't I just go in and tap to get the different,
Yep, you can actually go back to agenda if you'd like to. So see if you can grab my hand and do it now. There we go, good.
I have it, okay. So I guess, Chairperson McGlone, do you want to start to call the things off? How would you like to?
Yeah, I think all the business is yours this evening, but I think you're going to start. You're starting with 145 South Main Street at 329 North Main Street.
I can start with three, it can go in the order, so I can start with that.
North to south, to south to north.
Oh, I can start with, so the first thing on the agenda is 329 North Main.
All right.
That's up
329.
on the screen right now.
Okay, so 329 North Main. I've been by all these properties, so I had a nice gander at that. So
It's just farther down on the screen. The Zoom public hearing rules are.
oh yeah, all right, yeah.
Oh, over here on the left-hand side, it's all bookmarked, Jill, so you don't need the legal.
Oh, I
ad, but
see
you
it. I'm
can
trying to
go
get
right
up there. I'm like, oh my
memorandum.
gosh. Okay.
Yeah, hit memorandum for your memorandum, application, site plan.
Because I was going from memory as to what I had in my head about what the business was. So there you go.
Okay.
Let's go 329.
329. So, good evening, Jill Mann here on behalf of Midtown LLC, which is the owner of the property located 329 North Main Street. I'm going to pull up the site plan. So 329 North Main Street is a property located, basically you can see it's right near Rockaway. Can I just easily change the pages? Yeah. So here's just an overview of it. So currently that property is improved by a residential home. And it is a legally existing non-conforming lot. So the reason why it's legally existing non-conforming is it was created a long time ago. And it consists of about 17 lots all brought together. And the property was developed as a home back in the early 30s.
Jill,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. Can you make the visual bigger?
Okay.
So let's,
See. I think I can up here, Katrina. There should be a positive button.
It's
No,
the
there's-
percentage up top.
Yeah, I'm
So-
trying to find. Oh, there it is. I have it.
Yeah. Us old people can't see 28%.
You know what? Honestly, Brian, we're not old. We're just visually impaired.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, let's. I'm going to make it. I'm going to do it to 50.
Yeah, no.
There. Oh, it's so much better. Thank you for
Yeah.
saying it. Okay. So this property, as I said, is legal existing non-conforming because it's so old and it was built and it was compiled a long time ago. It now has been rezoned from a business zone to an industrial zone. The result is 40,000 square feet used to be the requirement. It is now 60. This lot is only 45,000 square feet. There you have it, legally existing, non-conforming. Basically, again, it is being used as a residential structure. The proponent is seeking a special permit to change a legally existing non-conforming structure from a non-conforming use to a conforming use. So basically, the proposal is to change this property to commercial property, which is consistent with everything around it. You see Sylvan Street that abuts it to believe it or not, it really is the north, even though you'd think it was the west, but it's not. It's the north or east. That's the north is Sylvan Street. And behind it, up above on Sylvan Street is I'm going to go back to that first page. Right here. So here's Sylvan Street. This is SMA. You guys know why when you drive by and it says Kangle Spa and all that stuff? That's
Yeah.
okay, so now you know kind of where you're coming in. Here is the hotel, and these are all those buildings around them.
Yeah, I went by the other day. I mean, I would consider this squarely, I would represent to the board, squarely as an eyesore, and with apologies to whoever lives there. And needs, I would love to return to the existing forming use. And for that reason, I'm always sort of very liberal in my opinion to the developer. Thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, no, it's this woman, Jill Deacon. She's from Ipswich, and she bought the property from Judd, and now she's seeking to redevelop all of them. I mean, I'm going to be coming to you with another special permit for. It's actually not even a special permit. It's a completely existing conforming lot at another time, but we have another application from her too to try and clean up these properties, which are in need of cleanup, and she knows it. So what she's proposing to do for this particular property, Katrina, is there a way to get to the that thumbnail again? I don't know how I managed to get rid of it.
Here. Whoop.
See what I mean? How it's gone? Oh wait, is this how there you go. So I thought, oh, maybe I didn't. I thought I had put in a picture of it. I didn't put in a,
No.
I thought I had put in an aerial. Well, nonetheless, so this particular property does have some, yeah, because you know what else is odd? The architecturals aren't here either, Katrina. And I did put in an aerial. That's why in the application, so I wonder where it is. I wanted to just show you guys, I mean,
Right.
obviously.
While you're looking at this, I'm going to take a look.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So I'll just keep going. So to Dave's point, most people know this property without knowing the property. When you drive by, it is completely obscured by exceptionally large pine trees that are kind of wildly planted. It's right next door to the property that it's like ANRAM or something it's called. It's a big industrial building. So the reason why I wanted to bring this particular picture up is just to show you every single solitary building that touches it is commercial. So the best thing for this particular use is to convert. So I'm going to go down another
Yeah.
page.
If I can interrupt, could I ask the members, because I can't use my computer because I'm sharing it right now, so I can't look to see that, but they have access to the Google Drive. And if you're sitting there and you can open your Google Drive, just check to see what she was just talking about, if there's architectural plans or the images, because I can't look for them right now.
Ugh, yeah. So I am going to continue to show you though.
I would call this area campy right now. Campy.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you.
It's sort of the cranberry bog type application. It's something that to move on from within Middleton. And I think it's not whether we're going to change or make our ruling but what you have to propose next. Any of the board members can stop me, but it's really not what it is now. It needs to change, but it's where it's going.
Exactly. And what you can see now, Mr. McGlone, is you can see the way in which this home is entered is over a driveway that comes off of 114. And then that's how they get access. But truly, they also access it over Sylvan Street. They'll come in, drive around, and come back. And this is just an industrial user. But what you'll see now is I'm going to show you, here's our new site plan, what we're proposing, which is actually, in my opinion, a big difference and a big improvement. So the proposed home is going to be converted to an office space. So they have to do some limited things to be able to convert the home to an office space. And then they were proposing to have outdoor storage, which will be fenced in these areas. They're, proposing to do some landscaping as well, but essentially they'll come in, one of their access points will continue to be off North Main Street, but they'll also have access, and they'll create it by moving a wall here and leveling it off so they can come down Sylvan Street and then come into the property to be able to access the storage areas. So let me show you the next plan. Sorry, when you blow something up, it makes everything a little bit different. So as you can see, the proposal is to actually redo some of the berm, basically to hold back for storm water. Because one of the big improvements and one of the wonderful things about this changeover, Mr. McGlone, is not only the visual, but also the fact that it now has to comply with stormwater management. So there'll be some facilities put in order to handle that. So that's a great improvement as well. Despite the fact that it has no wetlands near it, it still must comply with stormwater management. I'm trying to change the sheet. Sometimes it just takes some time.
Oh, go up top, Jill. You see these arrows?
Yeah, I'm using them. It just, how it is. It like takes time sometimes because
Yeah.
we're sharing a screen. So here we go. This is what I wanted to show you because this is the proposed planting plan. Okay. So basically all of those, quite frankly, kind of unattractive trees are going to be removed, and what's going to go in their place are attractive planting beds. So it'll be more of a low slung look so that you can see the building, but in addition to that, it won't look dark. And that's what it does. When you drive by, it looks dark. So now they're opening the visual element of the building up. They're going to screen the outdoor storage areas. They'll put a fence around so it can't expand. There'll be a locked gate on both of them. There's sufficient parking shown, and then there'll be an additional outdoor storage area in the back right here. And that's basically, let me push this over. That's the whole, ooh, I'm so sorry for doing that. I'm moving too quickly for the screen. There we go. So that's basically the proposal. We're going to improve the stormwater. We're going to improve the visual character of the property. We'll convert it to a better income producing property for purposes of the town because we'll eliminate the single family use, which does not have a high tax value. And we will convert it to commercial, which will have a higher tax value, not only in terms of real estate, but also personal property tax. And hopefully they'll register their vehicles here so that we get excise, Middleton will get excise tax revenue as well. And that's basically the proposal with regard to this particular property.
What's going to be the outdoor storage area use, and then I'll turn it over to the rest of the board.
Sure. We honestly don't know, Mr. McGlone. So typically it could be a landscaper. It could be, a plumber who has piping. It could be a number of things. We don't know exactly what it's going to be.
And
we've had interest.
What do we have now from a road? So somebody's going to drop off a carload of or trainload of pipes there. What do we have? I said you said you were going to do new replantings.
Yep,
but,
all in front, right here. Yep.
Yeah. What guarantee do we have? You're not going to be able to see that from the road, and it's not going to become something ugly 5 or 10 years.
So we have actually a fence, a stockade fence that will be put around the area. So this is basically very similar to what was done on North Main Street at like 324 SK's project with 10 industrial units, and this isn't even industrial units. Same C&D landscaping, which is just down the street on North Main. You know, we will put up fencing, and it's not as if it's going to be, you know, junk. That's not what this is. It's about outdoor storage for individual contractors.
Right. There are better uses for that area, and I think there could have been minimal fingers raised to make that area a little bit more attractive than it is. So that's my only comment. I'll leave it to the rest of the board to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Anthony. What's the square footage of the proposed office space?
It's so open to the public is different because it's such a small building. I'm just looking up what I had written down. It's not even 2,500 square feet, I believe.
Okay.
Because you have open space. So in the if you will, in the architectural plans, you'll see that the just flipping to them, I'm sorry.
Jill, in your memorandum, it does say that the dwelling is a 2.5 story.
With
a
1,800 square foot
Yep.
footprint. But I'm just trying to actually look at the, I'm looking at the wrong plan. I'm looking at the actual plans that I had submitted, because while it says 18 square feet, you have, like, for example, break rooms. So the total area is probably half of it, maybe the whole building with regard to office space is maybe 2,000 square feet.
Okay. Thank you.
Is every building on that site going to be demolished? Because it goes back pretty far.
I'm going to go back to that. So
Do you want me to do it?
I think it's coming now. There we go. So every building, there's only one building on it. So the only building that this particular owner owns is this building.
Okay.
I'm going to increase it again. I'm sorry, Mr. York. 1 second.
I'm not the only one that's visually impaired. You can throw me under the bus.
I'm visually impaired too. So, you know, it is what it is, right? At least we can see. So here, this is the only home. Everything else are just, engineering lines drawn on a plan that is a little bit confusing, because what all of these things are small walls or berm. But this property here's the breadth of the property.
So Jill, the structure and the plans seems to be almost in the same spot as the structure that's in the existing. Are you guys just rehabbing it, or?
Yes, we're only rehabbing it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it would be nice to tear it down and put something new up, but now is not the time to do that. So we're opting for rehab.
Sorry, what's the date of the original structure?
1930. But it was modified, I think, somewhere around 80. I can't remember if it was 89, somewhere around there.
Yeah, no, I was just curious about, being up to code and all that, so.
Oh, we have okay, so when you do these types of conversions, you have to do what they call a code 34 or 54 review, and that was done by the architect telling us everything we have to do. For example, fire, smokes, access, all of that. We have to do a full code compliance, and that's something that's done. So we have to get an occupancy permit to do anything with this particular office, and that's done during the building permit phase. But we have a lot of work to do to change it so that we can use it for commercial purposes.
Hey, it's Jeff Garber. I'm just wondering if we should put some restrictions of what could be stored out there. It seems like just about anything in the world, we approve this could be stored out there, and I'd be more comfortable if we knew what was being planted in the outdoor storage.
Yeah, I mean, At this point, we don't have a person. We're trying to get it approved because we can't rent it until we know we have a use, and we don't have a use until it's approved. So we can, Mr. Garber, put in general restrictions. It's not things we don't typically do. So if the board were to want to recommend those, when you do your recommendation to the zoning board, you know, we can discuss what those would be. For example, typically if I'm in a sensitive zone and I'm near water and I'm likely to have runoff, you know, the Conservation Commission will weigh in and say, look, can you please restrict it so that you have it in an enclosed, so we have to put in those big blocks so that the materials don't spill or run off. That's a typical restriction. What is another restriction is sometimes people say, okay, no storage of fuel products or hazardous materials. That's a very common one and a very reasonable restriction.
I was thinking more visual. I don't know, maybe a height restriction or just, I was thinking more visual than what you mentioned.
A visual issue relative to height would be a problem, because if somebody wanted to put equipment in, so for example, say you have a landscaper who has, I don't know, some sort of a truck. Commercial trucks are pretty large. For the most part, they do move them out, but it is an industrial property. I mean, it is. And it would be no different than what, you know, what is on some of the other, if you will, you know, outdoor storage areas down the street, which all have some form of equipment.
Jill, does the building inspector limit the, you know, like the height that bark mulch can be piled because of the danger involved or anything, so that the planning board doesn't have to worry about that because it's limited anyway?
Right, so the height of there isn't really a danger with height of bark mulch. There's a danger if you enclose it. Because what happens is if you enclose it, it can produce gases and it can get very warm. You know, you ever touch mulch when it's in a pile, it feels warm,
Right.
But it isn't dangerous in terms of combustibility. That's why I said, if you said hazardous materials, combustible materials, that's a reasonable restriction because it's related to the safety. But he does not restrict that type of thing. It's typically restricted because of the size of the open space areas, number one. Number two, it's pretty expensive to rent on 114, so I don't know how likely it would be that they would just store something like that. Like C&D does all the time, right? Down the street, you know what I'm talking about?
I just remember that time at Northeast Nurseries about 20 years ago where someone died or got hurt when the
When the mulch fell on him?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, those
I don't think the area is big enough to stockpile that much.
I mean, those are mounds that are what, 30 feet tall almost.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know how you do that.
Yeah, Jill, it's Brian. I don't have any concerns. I think it's a good step forward.
Thank you.
Jill, this is Brian Carroll. I'm kind of in the same boat. That property has a reasonable break between the massive amount of forest behind it. So as long as some toxic restrictions are put on there, I don't see a problem.
And honestly, I think that makes sense. And even to Mr. Garber's point, if you did want to impose a height restriction, you could say no outdoor storage of any material that would exceed the height restriction in the area. So the height restriction in the area is 35 feet. Put it on.
Katrina, is anybody in the audience that we need to enable to have them speak?
There is not. It's just Paul Pelicelli and Amy Becker.
For the record, there's nobody out there that wants to speak on this issue, correct?
And it isn't a public hearing anyway.
Yeah, I know, but if I followed my predecessor's footsteps, sometimes he would entertain
Right.
anybody that had a good idea for a short, and at least a prompt discussion. So, any of the board members have any more comments or questions? Okay, if not, who's that?
No, I was going to say, I don't.
Okay,
Dave.
all right, thank you. So I will entertain a motion to make a positive recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals with certain conditions as discussed, and they should be respecified for 329 North Main Street, Midtown Place LLC, special permits to authorize conversion from a non-conforming residential use to a business use, authorize general office uses, and authorize office uses by contractors in creation and use of outdoor storage areas and a site plan approval. And Katrina, this also, I think, sweeps up 11 Rockaway Road, Midtown Place LLC, a special permit to authorize substantial expansion of non-conforming residential use to allow 17 residential units in site plan approval. Or do we want to handle this separately because this is the
Oh,
first?
separately.
All right. So okay. So on item B, we will defer that for now. So we'll just talk about 329 North Main Street, Midtown Place LLC, special permits to authorize conversion for non-conforming residential use to business use, authorized general office uses, and 3 authorized office uses by contractors in creation and use of outdoor special storage of outdoor storage areas and for site plan approval. But as these are abutting areas, I would entertain a motion subject to reconsideration within this hearing if item B does not jibe with item A, because we have not discussed these 17 residential uses. So it would be contingent, and the motion would be contingent on our discussion of 11 Rockaway Road because they're abutting properties, correct?
They are not abutting properties, Mr. McGlone. They're distant by about 400 feet. They don't connect at all.
You have Dunkin' Donuts in the middle of them.
They're the same owner, but they are totally different parcels separated by at least 2 or 3 properties that are not owned by this person.
Okay, so I guess we can go with item A only, not contingent upon the approval of item B.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to give a positive recommendation to the ZBA with regards to 329 North Main Street, Midtown Place LLC for the special permits to authorize conversion from a non-conforming residential use to business use, authorize general uses and general office uses, and to authorize office uses by contractors and creation of outdoor storage areas and a site plan approval.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. So I'll pull the board. Mr. Garber, yay or nay?
Okay. Did we have a second on the motion?
I'm sorry, you're absolutely correct. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
All right. Mr. Garber,
Yeah, yes.
Mr. DiGregorio,
Yay.
Mr. York,
Yay.
Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
and I am an aye. And thank you again, Mr. Kikta, for your attention. So let that be recorded.
Okay, got it?
Thank you very much.
So Katrina, I believe we're moving on to 11 Rockaway Road.
Here we go. Yep.
2B, yes.
Every time I hear 2B, I have to say, or not 2B. I can't even help myself.
Jill, can you still manipulate things?
I believe so. Here we go. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to introduce myself. So Jill Mann here on behalf of Midtown Place LLC in connection with a request once again for a special permit to change a non-conforming structure that basically has a non-conforming use. The request though here is not to change it to a conforming use, but to basically expand the non-conforming use. So this property is, I'm gonna outline it for you just so you can see it here. Here is, Mr. McGlone, just because I think it's better, here's 329.
Yep.
Okay, here's 11 Rockaway. That's why I wanted to show you that it was across the street and a ways away. So
Yeah,
anyhow.
but not across 114. It's across.
No, across Rockaway.
Yep.
Yep. But it's the same name, so I get it.
Yeah.
So this is 11 Rockaway, and it is comprised of this very oddly shaped lot. I'm going to go to the next page. So basically, the home currently, it's called, for people who live in Middleton, Mr. Garber, it's called the Ginger Mill. It had been used previously as a multifamily dwelling. I won't go into the details, but it is not permitted as a multifamily dwelling. It was constructed as such, and it had all individual rooms, but it had never received an occupancy permit or anything in writing that would have allowed it to be a legally existing non-conforming use. It is simply a single family home that is about 17,000 square feet. It is a very, very large structure. This particular building, the proponents are seeking to retain the residential nature of the building. You can imagine that there's not much demand for a 17,000 square foot building on Rockaway Road. The harsh reality is that this project, this particular property should be residential because, as you can see, this property is surrounded by residential uses. And it's separated from the commercial properties by a wetland. So it truly is pretty residential in the back. So the proposal is to actually take the property and to convert it into not hotel style buildings or rooms, but rather studios and one bedroom units, which are in great demand in Middleton because we have very little, if not any, of this type of housing, which is something we probably have said in our master plan is something we need to attend to and address because we have none of it. So the proposal is to actually convert the building, expand the legal residential use from the single family to a multifamily with 17 total units on 3 separate stories. The
Jill,
alternative.
excuse me. I'm sorry, Jill, excuse me. Of these 17, how many of them will be, low rent housing?
Well, okay, so they're all moderate housing. None of them are affordable.
Affordable housing.
They aren't affordable. They're not affordable. So basically there'll be moderate priced housing. So there'll be something where people can come in and afford to rent them. But they are not, if you, for lack of a better term, that 80% average, that's not what they are. They wouldn't comply with that requirement from the state. What was I gonna say? So basically, that's what the proposal is. There had been a permit previously to actually develop this as 16 units, but it was never completed. It never was affected. So the proposal currently is to believe it or not, to make the structure more conforming, because presently, I'm going to increase this again because I am having trouble seeing it. So I'm assuming others with the same visual impairment are having the same issue.
That would be affirmative.
Okay, so let's sneak this over. Okay, I'm going to bring this down. Okay, so basically, you can see that this dwelling has been built on top of the lot line right here. Now that is legally existing, but it's non-conforming. So the proposal is actually to remove this back area and to make it into a patio. And I'll show you that in just a minute. So there are going to be improvements to this particular lot, one of which is to remove the back building that sits on the lot line. The other is to improve the right-of-way that is Rockaway, that comes down and services as the entrance for this particular property. This property, interestingly enough, has 2 entrance points. So Rockaway, I'm trying to get to the top of this, but because of, okay, I'm going to do this. Can I move? I'm trying to move the, here we go.
I think you can grab it with the
There we
hand
go.
and pull.
Okay. So I just want to see how Rockaway comes around and it actually wraps around the building. So you can see how the project has frontage all along Rockaway in the back. And then I wanted to change it from this is the existing plan. And I want to show you the changes we're proposing to make.
Where is this in relation to the motel, which I see
Yep, I'll
no-
show you. Okay, I can show you that on the next page, I believe.
all right, sorry, I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead.
No, please, it's not a problem at all, Mr. McGlone. Ask away.
No,
So the
I think it's north. If
hotel is here. Oops, I don't know what I
Yeah.
just. The hotel is, if you will, below the parking lot, directly below the parking lot.
Because, you know, I have an interest aesthetically in getting rid of that hotel. I just want to know how that fits in.
So
Yeah.
we have no idea how the hotel fits in.
Yeah.
That is a very, 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 very large project, and we've been marketing it, and it's not.
Well, it's not in use right now, so it has really no social, you know, before, you know, I wanted to get rid of it, and I understood that maybe some families in distress were staying there overnight, and, you know, that was something was very sympathetic with, but I see nobody's using it for anything right now.
Yeah, it's not allowed to be open. It needs a complete review. It needs so much work, Mr. McGlone, that the parties who own it now are not in a position to do that type of work.
Yeah, there's no countervailing equity for its existence, is what I'm saying. There's nothing I have to worry about, or this board has to worry about, because it's derelict, basically. And that's just why I wanted to know whether it was, you know, what the relationship was, if any, because it would be a nice thing to go away now that it has no social utility.
Right. So there is absolutely no relationship. The Midtown Place does own it. When they bought the properties from Judd Deacon, that was one of the properties that was conveyed. However, this particular property has nothing to do with that. If there were a willing and able buyer, you would see me here for them. We don't, right now we're struggling with it. This project would basically, what the owner is trying to do is to improve the aesthetics of the existing buildings that are within her grasp to improve. So 329, thank you very much, was a very important first step for them to be able to begin to generate revenue for these properties, because there really is none. This particular property you're seeing now is also vacant, Mr. McGlone. So this also had to undergo that building code review that we had spoken about. And there was a very detailed sheet about all of the changes that need to be made. An architect had been hired to go through and do all that for fire protection and access as well. So if you'll notice on this particular plan, you see the ADA access, that is a ramp that was put in to the front of the property so that it could be accessible for people with disabilities. The back patio area, like I said, we're removing a portion of the building in order to allow the building to become more conforming and to provide nice outdoor space. I mean, it's important if you're going to create studio apartments and one-bedroom apartments, you're going to be attracting, hopefully, you know, older people in our community who can't either afford to maintain their homes or no longer choose to, and quite hopefully, we would love to be able to encourage or welcome the younger population of Middleton. It would be wonderful to see, you know, for lack of a better term, our kids come back and be able to have a place to stay. And this really will be a very nice and attractive building. We have provided for a very nice, easy access parking lot. Now what it had were people were parking on the street and parking, you know, wherever. So now we're proposing a very well-designed parking lot, you know, that the engineer Williams and Sprague has designed, and are proposing to do the roadway improvements. So if you've ever driven down this particular building, property, I think you did, Mr. McGlone, it is, I mean, it is tough. So when they come in and they make these proposed improvements, it will make a great deal of difference coming down into this property. And the only other choice, if we were not allowed to expand the residential use, it would mean we would have to use it for industrial purposes. And as you can see, there are homes everywhere around here. It would be a tough thing to take this property and make it commercial. But if we had, that's the only use that would be conforming. And then if you go back further on the property, so to the north more, it does abut no mid industrial park, but It's the area that's all wet. So if you go back behind there, there's a tremendous amount of a wetland chain back there. And there are some lots that NOMID owns, but those lots are not able to be accessed off of Rockaway because they do not have the right of access over this particular road because it is a private road, not a public road. So for the most part,
We're
that's the
rehabilitation of existing structures though, right? We're not talking about a new building.
no, we are not. No, simply a modification to it, just improve it. I mean, it's actually a decent looking building, but once you take off the back portion was almost, Katrina, had you ever been out there?
Once.
It's almost shed-like. I don't know how else to describe it to you. It's a projection off the building and it's absolutely part of the structure, but it's not, if you will, it's not attractive. So the removal of it reduces the footprint of the building and allows for that nice open space for anybody who would live at the property to have an open patio. And there are a couple of balconies that will exist on some of these units as well. So that's what we're seeking to do, is to basically allow for 17 units with a mix of studio and 1-bedrooms and site plan approval to be able to accomplish that.
You're
Don't
not
let me
asking for any
keep
special
speaking.
permits?
It is a special permit, Ms. O'Leary, yes.
Okay.
It's a special permit. In order to expand a non-conforming use, you must get a special permit under section 3.3.2.1. So it's just one of those provisions under the non-conforming statute in Middleton. It is not allowed by right, no. An industrial use would be.
Do any members of the board have any questions?
Sorry, someone has some feedback coming through. I don't know if other people can hear it.
Oh, yes.
Just if you can mute yourself if there's sound in your room right now.
I have a question, Jill. Can you speak to why you wouldn't think the appropriate relief would be a variance to change a building from a single family to a 17-unit building?
Yeah, that's the provision you're allowed under the non-conforming provisions under that particular section to actually have it be a special permit, not a variance, because it's already that residential use. So basically, you know, I met with Scott Fitzpatrick, the zoning enforcement officer, and that's the applicable provision.
Okay.
Jeff, that'll be up to the ZBA to determine if the proposed use is not more detrimental to the area than the existing use, which is a single family use.
Right.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yeah, so under the special permit, the criteria is whether or not it's more substantially detrimental. So you have to justify the particular use. That's why I said it definitely is in Middleton's best interest to retain it as a residence, but the option is not a single family. It can't be. It's economically inviable. So the choice would be to convert fully to an industrial use.
Mr. Chairman, I've looked at the aerial view from Google, and there's tons of forest right behind it.
Oh,
I would very much not like to see a commercial use there.
Yeah, again, I think, you know, for some reason, this area is sort of, I don't want to use the word spiritual, but it seems to have a little bit of freer social use where people who are transitioning maybe in life should you know, be able to have a studio. There's not a ton of them in Middleton, or a 1-bedroom. And if they're going to be rehabbed, it's certainly, the place has been waiting for 200 years, literally, to be rehabbed. You know, so I don't think our aspirations should be so high that we stand in the way of a sort of a redevelopment of it. That's just my opinion. And of course, I would love to hear everybody else's opinion.
I think it's a great idea. It'd be a great addition in that area.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. I certainly, looking at the pictures, you know, it's kind of, there's nothing behind it other than, you know, natural areas. So I would hate to see it turn into an industrial area.
Yeah, I think we have enough, and I think the Andover line, which comes up pretty quickly there, has sort of the same uses, where it's sort of mixed light industrial and apartment complex across the street that is a studio in one bedroom, and it's sort of the neighborhood. That's sort of the character of the neighborhood. You know, and on the North Andover side, I think they've done a really good job in that area, and I think we should sort of mirror that. And so I don't. So unless there's anybody that wants to comment, the chairperson will entertain a motion to make a positive recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals with or without conditions of 11 Rockaway Road, Midtown Place LLC, a special permit to authorize substantial expansion of non-conforming residential use to allow 17 residential units and site plan approval.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Who is that?
Jeff Garber.
Okay. Okay, so here's the vote. Mr. Garva,
Aye.
Mr. Di Gregorio,
Aye.
Mr. York,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
and I vote aye. And Mr. Kikta, thank you for your attention. So there's the vote on that. Also, I want to go back to item A, if I may.
Sure.
I just don't know if we restated the conditions. We had no conditions to my knowledge on item B. If anybody on the board has a condition, please speak up. But item A, there was a condition of at least no storage of fuel.
Yep. And hazardous materials.
And so, or hazardous material. So we all agree on that, and let the record reflect that, unless anybody has a comment or objection to that right now.
No, I would think that if Ms. O'Leary includes that in the recommendation, you know, she says that she suggests that condition, I think that's appropriate.
Yes, great.
Okay, I will include it in the recommendation.
All right, so if anybody else has a comment or speak now or forever hold your peace on those two items. Thank you. And I think we go to item C, and I'm sure this is going to be
The one that's your favorite.
yeah. I'm not making any comments. So let's talk about 145 South Main Street, Acorn Street Realty LLC site plan modification to add 4 food trucks and additional parking to the current permitted use. If everybody's ready to move on.
Is this the place with the Salty's fish cart or whatever?
It is.
It is.
Okay.
All right, it's ready for you.
Thank you. So, good evening, Jill Mann here on behalf of Acorn Realty LLC. So, the food truck I'm increasing it. The food truck that was approved and has been operating now for about close to 2 months has met with rousing success, and people absolutely love it. They have been packed every day they're open. Families have been going, Middleton residents go, older people, younger people. I don't know if anybody from the board is gone, but it ends up being a tremendous meeting place. You see a lot of your neighbors, you see a lot of the people you know. As a result of that, Jay Currier has been getting a number of other food trucks requesting the ability to come in and to operate. As a result of that, and the high demand that Salty's is barely keeping up with, he's proposing to add food trucks. Now, these particular food trucks will be located a fair distance away from the entrance point. And the manner in which the property is being, if you will, redesigned is to provide for the parking and the vehicular traveled way to be away from the food trucks. So these little round things are a boulder separation. So instead of putting in, the Jersey barriers, which are temporary for the current COVID issue, these boulders would be not temporary because it's hoped that the food trucks will continue to have the success they have been having. So what Jay is proposing, by the way, it's about a 5-acre parcel. You can see it's 210,000 square feet. He's proposing to take area. If you can see it, this is this tree line.
Can I make it just a little bit bigger?
Big, of course I can.
Just 75?
Can we go on record that
There we go.
Miss O'Leary is also visually impaired?
Yeah,
Oh, look at these.
I'm telling you, age is a wonderful thing, isn't it? I'm just trying to get it so that you can see the end of the clearing zone. Jill. You can't, it's like you touch something and it just doesn't.
Try grabbing it with the hand. So you just click on the site plan and drag it.
Yeah, I'm trying to, when I do that, I seem to move it too quickly.
Oh,
I know, it's crazy, right? Okay, there. So at least now I've got the whole area showing. Okay. I don't have the photo. Oh, here you go. I'm going to do it a little bit bigger. So essentially what Mr. Curry is proposing to do is to take down some of the trees in the back area. If you remember, this particular property is the front part all over here is already cleared. This whole thing is completely cleared. That was when we had done the farmer's market at this particular property. We cleared it and then put that reprocessed asphalt down. And that's the current surface of this entrance point, as well as the parking areas. So what he's proposing to do is to locate parking along the rear, which there basically already was. So we had parking in this area before. Now we're seeking to expand the parking here and then put more spaces here and then spaces on the bottom near the food trucks as well. The proposal involves cutting trees in this area, and that's basically it. We'll keep some of the tree line, and then we'll put in more reprocessed gravel, and then we'll put in the crushed gravel, those small stones, to support where the outdoor seating goes. I mean, I'm sure part of the success of this is because people are still rather intimidated to eat indoors, but I think a large part of its success is also that it's a very family-friendly place. So if you have young children, it's nice to be able to bring them and have them stay outside and be able to eat something. So it has been a very successful venture. And the proposal, as I said, is for 4 new food trucks, and the parking does support that. So I don't
Jill,
know.
question
Yep.
for you.
Please, yes.
With 4 new food trucks and a lot more parking spaces from what we're seeing here,
Yep.
is there a plan to expand facilities that are available for customers?
So believe it or not, I don't know that you need to have additional bathroom facilities because of the numbers. Like a regular, I think they have a male and female now. In a restaurant, that's all they really need as well. So to the extent, though, Derek Fullerton requires it, we would expand, but I don't believe it's necessary.
Attorney
I just
Mann,
want
this is Anthony. Sorry.
go ahead. Is that Mr. DiGregorio?
Yes, thank you.
Please go ahead.
One of the things that I absolutely dislike about that property right now is the stone and the gravel where everyone parks. And I've got enough cracked windshield claims in the insurance business that people pulling out on the 114 with stones stuck in their tires. It's just claim after claim waiting to happen. But my business aside, is there anything planned to redevelop the ground surface?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Jill, when we first talked about the first truck, there was a question that somebody raised about the difference between this being a private property that's running a food truck that is a temporary structure and not necessarily paying business taxes versus a place that's like a brick and mortar. Can you go through that? Because now we're quintupling it. So
it remains the same thing. Is they're all temporary structures. It's permitted by right in Middleton, but they're temporary structures. They are not a brick and mortar, so nothing is permanent, essentially. You will see that there'll be very little use. As a matter of fact, they probably won't operate at all January, February, March. When there's, excessive weather, they don't operate. And I'm not even sure if they would operate in November. So there is the difference there. They're, if you will, a seasonal use. The places that I can think are similar. I know there's a food truck court, if you will, in Salem that's very similar. It operates on seasonal basis. So that's the big difference. And that's why, you'll notice the infrastructure isn't, this big parking area with set fixtures, because they're mobile units. So therein lies the difference. We'll provide a program. Yep.
Boston and other towns, and I'm sure probably Salem, they get paid fees for food trucks because of the traffic that they attract, the stuff that's left behind, etc. I mean, is there nothing that Middleton gets out of this? Is this just a free ride?
No, it's not, because the couriers have been paying taxes on that property for decades, and they will continue to pay real estate taxes. And as they improve it, there are taxes associated with it. And the individual owners do have to pay personal property tax on those vehicles that are located there. So they do operate there. And
Do they pay in Middleton though? Do they pay they're not paying, they're paying that to the state.
I think, no, Middleton gets personal property tax from businesses.
On the vehicles?
Not excise tax. They have to be registered. So you have personal property that you use in connection with the business. And I believe Brad taxes that. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he does.
Mr. Chairman, do you understand where I'm going with this? I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like, a little bit reverie to put so many trucks in Middleton, and Middleton's not getting anything out of it.
They get property taxes. So in the other communities, those trucks are located on either town-owned land or on public ways. So there is no generation of income. Here, the generation of income is the couriers pay it, and the couriers plow it, and they pay not only they pay the real estate tax, but they maintain it. So there aren't, in Boston and in Salem, they're in public ways. You come out and you go to that common court and you sit around on those stairs. Well, the city has to clean that up. So the couriers or their tenants must clean up after the food truck. If you've noticed, Salty's is a very clean enterprise. Everything's put away at night. Nothing is left out. It's always in very nice shape. The buckets don't overflow with garbage. It's well maintained because it's private property. Those other communities, while there's large areas where they're allowed to be, for the most part, I believe, are on municipally owned areas. I don't know of any. I don't know if they're private. In Boston, I know it's in a parking lot.
I mean,
I'm not sure here.
if this were Middleton House of Pizza, then they're obviously paying something because it's a brick and mortar, and they're making money from people in and around Middleton.
There is sales.
I don't see how the real estate value, I don't see how the real estate taxes changes anything based on the revenue of the income.
Right. Well, you do get sales and meals tax revenue from it. So we do get that component. You do get a benefit. I mean, these aren't entities that are generating, millions and millions of dollars of revenue like a brick and mortar restaurant would.
Have you had a lot?
So unfortunately, the planning board, it doesn't have to decide those things tonight, and you're just reviewing the site plan. This is a use that's allowed by right.
Yep.
And so what I would suggest is if you do have concerns like that, then maybe the planning board could have a discussion of that and suggest to the Board of Selectmen ways to increase fees for food trucks in the future, et cetera. But for tonight, you're just really reviewing the site plan.
But Katrina,
my bad, I went off the rails.
I don't mind the conversation. I don't mind.
I don't agree. I think we traditionally have jurisdiction over how the streets fit together. I think that is our baseline jurisdiction. And you're going from 1 to 6 or 5 food trucks on a major state highway next to an elementary school onto a gravel surface. and you're going to cause a backup. And at least in the summertime, you also have the aggravating factor of a regional ice cream place across the street. And I think this is squarely within the planning board's jurisdiction, and we should have an opinion on this one way or the other.
Well, definitely you should have an opinion. I'm just saying that this is why it's before you tonight,
Right.
is to review the site plan.
We gave historically a negative recommendation on one food truck. I do believe that was a mistake, was a recommendation. I do feel now that we made a mistake. I think it's a clean operation. It's improved a lot to a minimal value. I still have qualms with the porta potty, which I can still see from the state highway. There's no door on that fence. It was supposed to be 360 degrees all the way around. And it just doesn't look classy. Other than that, the operation is fantastic. I've eaten there. I enjoyed it. Everybody's very polite. And they've really done a lot with an empty lot, to use the same word twice. But five, multiplying that times 4 or 5 is squarely within the jurisdiction of this board. And as Mr. Tierna would have pointed out, there's no highway study to say that's a good idea or a bad idea, because they're semi-permanent structures. They're not permanent structures. And if there was a permanent structure there on the state highway, there would be a recommendation. So those are my thoughts, and I would love to hear the thoughts of my fellow panel members.
I tend to agree in that, let's assume for the moment that things were normal and school would start at the last week of August or whatever. These food trucks would potentially run through to halfway through November. I mean, if they're making good business, and with school buses at the same junction, I don't see that as productive for the town at all.
I just want to add that the food trucks agreed to not open when the school was in session. So they only open for lunch. They close before school gets out. And the superintendent, not the superintendent, the principal was there. And we discussed it with her at the hearing, and we agreed to then not open until school hours were closed and there was no more traffic, so we wouldn't have the competition.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
That's
I
great.
But I think to a point that was made, you've increased the potential traffic here with the addition of the ice cream shop across the street. I mean, I don't know if it's an unsafe area with the number of cars coming in and out. I think that needs to be assessed.
Given the number of cars that go into Fuller Meadows School, it absolutely is able to handle it. And because we will be offsetting it, there's no competition between the two. So the area really can handle it. And this is one of the spots in which there's a third turning lane. And basically when it's a site plan approval, and it's by right use, it's contemplated that the creation of the road and the properties and the rezoning or zoning of those properties already contemplates what would be deemed to be a regular use of the property, which this is.
I have a question. Are those going to be like traditional food trucks? Like Salty's is a trailer. Are these going to be similar to that, or are they going to be trucks that could come and go, or they'll be brought in once for the season and stay there?
We believe they're going to be exactly like Salty's. They'll be the trailer, they'll come in, they'll set up, and they'll stay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is it within our jurisdiction to ask for a private traffic study before, or make that recommendation to the
Take that
ZBA?
recommendation.
You can make the recommendation, but with a by right use on site plan approval that doesn't require any special permits, it's already been contemplated for the area, so it's not.
You can still make the recommendation.
You can. I mean, my point is it doesn't really have much teeth.
Jill,
Yeah,
what,
well, we'll do it.
what would your client say?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what would your client say about maybe just doing 2 and then moving on when the board and ZBA and whoever else is happy that it hasn't disrupted anything?
Well, I'll give you an example.
That
That's why,
leaping from 1 to 5 is a little bit much.
and the reason, Mr. Carroll, is we had come in, I mean, we're seeking the 4 because we had come in for just the 1. We wanted to come in for more, believe you me. But it was decided, no, you know what, just come in for the 4. Because of the way the season works, if we don't do this now, we won't do it this year. And it'll have to wait till late spring. And that's really why, because the season is so short. So he's trying to see, is this really a viable use of the property?
I get that, but maybe going from 1 to 3 is better than going from 1 to 5. I mean,
Agreed.
you know, right now he started to crawl and he's doing quite well. Perhaps walking is better before running.
I understand. I mean, my understanding, Mr. Carroll, is you'd like that to be a recommendation going forward that I could discuss with my client?
Yes, because I mean, well, you've already cracked the egg here, so to speak.
I like that, yeah.
You know, I don't want to see any of the egg white running out onto 114 too much.
I understand. I understand.
Mr. Chairman, do you agree or?
I agree wholeheartedly with exactly what you said. I think you know, I don't want to change the opinions of this board, but should they be different? But I agree that we should not jump from 1 to 5, jump from 1 to 3. And in terms of recommendation, we're just making a recommendation. We're not omnipotent in this regard. The ZBA is. So I think that's an easy recommendation for us, given the fact that we do not know the impact of how many cars are going to appear on 114, in addition to the ones that are there now. And we're next to an elementary school.
Well, I think it's possible for us to give a negative recommendation to the ZBA. I mean, I'm not sure that that really matters at the end of the day because we have no jurisdiction over. I'm not even sure why this is coming to us because we can't. I mean, we clearly were not in favor of the first food truck.
So
Now
the
you're coming
reason
with-
why it's in front of you is because the ZBA is looking for your advice and your knowledge on reviewing site plans. So they're looking for you to make recommendations that make sense. So to just
Brian,
give a negative recommendation is going to do nothing because it is a use allowed by right.
No, I know.
What would be
That's why.
better is to recommend, I heard maybe a traffic study or limit the number of food trucks to 2. So you can make those kinds of recommendations that would be helpful.
Yeah. So I think this is, you know, and this is one of the things I wanted to change upon assuming the chairpersonship of this board. This is not like a binary black or white thing. This is more about what ideas do we have about this area given what's before us. And it's really more of a brainstorming session. We can make a negative recommendation. They're routinely ignored by the ZBA. We probably shouldn't waste our breath on it. I think we have to use our expertise with respects to jurisdiction of the roadways in this town to brainstorm. And I think that should be our mission. And, you know, what I see is 3 great ideas already, and those should inform us with respect to our recommendations and not so much focus on opposing things or getting up on our soapboxes,
Right.
but brainstorming, because whether we make a positive or negative recommendation, it doesn't matter, and the ZBA routinely ignores us, but maybe we can give them an idea or 2.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps if we give a limited recommendation stating, you know, modification to add 2 more, and then come next season, come back to us and we'll say, yes, it worked out great, you know?
Yeah, you know, I really, you know, I was negative on Salties. And like I said, I do 90% regret that. I think it's been a great addition, subject to my idiomatic distaste for seeing a porta potty from 114. I brought my father there. The food was clean and people were polite. It certainly is filling an unanticipated need during COVID when, you know, a senior doesn't want to go inside and I can walk there from Fuller Pond with my father. It certainly was a great day, and it wouldn't have happened had I had my way the first time. So, you know, I do regret that vote, 90%. and I'm sure it can take another food truck or two. And I think, again, this is about brainstorming about what to suggest to the ZBA. The only fear I have is that this is going to generate 400 more car trips a day in front of an elementary school, which again goes to our central authority here as just not being a good idea.
Which, not to mention, if I may, I mean, with the way school is being potentially structured this coming year with staggered days, we don't even know what the bus traffic's really going to look like yet.
Well,
Right.
we do know it's still the same time frames. It's like, 8 to 2:30. That's
Give or
not,
take, yes, you're absolutely right, give or take, but we know the changes are on the way, so.
yeah, it's going to be heavy traffic during those times. It'll be a nightmare for people who have businesses who compete with those time frames. So anybody a normal course, 8:30, 9:30, it's going to be tough. Salty's doesn't open until 11:30, and then it closes, I think, at 1:30. And then it doesn't open again until 4 or 5.
See, now, if you said that they served a lobster omelet, we might have changed our minds.
Ooh, that sounds good. They do serve a lobster panini, though. I'm hoping for lobster bisque. I love that.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion?
Yeah, okay, so I just want to go through really quickly for you the three ideas, the three qualifications that may or may not inform your motion. That there be 2 more businesses or 3 more businesses, I don't know, it's your motion, not opening during school dismissal hours.
Yeah.
And we recommend a traffic safety study for that area. Those are the 3 things. So,
Mr. Chair, do we also want to consider requesting a different type of permeable parking surface other than crushed rock?
well, I'll leave that to the movement.
Okay.
I think we need to discuss that. I mean, I'm not crazy about the crushed rock, but it's a pervious surface, which I think is good because I live on the dried out brook that's about 20 feet behind me right now. There's no water in it. It's just a mud flat. So I wouldn't want to see that myself paved. That's just my opinion. I don't know if we want to do 2 votes, one with the 3 recommendations and one with all 4 recommendations together. Mr. DiGregorio, what were you thinking in terms of a motion? If you were the movement? What were you
I
thinking?
agree with all the 3 ones that you had stated previously. There are multiple different types of permeable surfaces that can be placed there other than crushed rock that would still allow for groundwater to penetrate. I just think the crushed rock creates an unnecessary hazard for people pulling out onto 114 with stones and rocks in their tires.
I have never heard that before, so that's good information.
Do you think perhaps requesting, say, the first, 30 feet in from the street or 40 feet, whatever it is, be paved, and then they can do their crushed rock thing? Or
Yeah, I have no problem with the crushed rock in the seating area where the food trucks park, just where the clientele parking spaces are.
or at least close to the street where they'd be getting out, so there's a little room for the rocks to get out of the tires, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, all right. Well, we can make that part of the motion. I would say that'd be a pervious pavement of some sort rather than just the old tar. What do we call it? Again, because that drains into the sort of broken brook behind me, the distressed brook behind me, and we need that water. So I wouldn't want that to be a regular pavement surface that they say you have in Teresa's, which is pushing back out onto 114.
Could you word it in a way that you left it up to the ZBA to come up with a type of surfacing at the entrance and exit that would reduce the amount of rocks and tires, so that they understand what you're going for here, and they may have a better suggestion to try and reduce the number of rocks and tires that get out on 114.
A pervious surface, yes. Recommend pervious surface.
Right, but only at the entrance and exit, right?
Yeah, the sort of the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
The entrance and exit are coterminous.
I don't know if we need to recommend a traffic study if we're going to limit the number of trucks. We're almost doing our own traffic study by doing that. And I don't think time-wise, it'll hold them up quite a bit to get that study. I don't know if we're going to limit or recommend a limit to the number of trucks, if we really need to recommend a traffic study.
We might be able to just kind of gauge it on our own.
Yeah, I sort of was toying with that idea myself, so I believe Ms. Mann would be happy about that. We don't want to stand in the way of progress right here in Ipswich River City. So, yeah, so I guess the motion, if a movement were to move right now, he in this case, because he would say not open during the school dismissal period, when school is in, and that the ZBA come up with a recommended pervious surface for the first 40 feet, and that only 2 trucks are recommended. Does anybody want to go for 3 here?
For 2 additional, for a total of 3, you mean, right?
Right, 3 all day.
Okay, so we're going to entertain a motion. Does anybody have a motion to that effect? And could they repeat it, because this is complex enough?
All right, Mr. Chairman, I will submit a motion to give a limited approval to 145 South Main Street petition, Acorn Street Realty, for site plan modification. They asked to add 4 trucks and additional parking to current permitted use. We would like to recommend 2 additional trucks, not to be present during school dismissal or other busy school bus times, and to install a non-gravel pervious surface from the street to 50 feet inside, 40 feet inside, whatever. 45. We'll call it 45. There you go.
Could you add the explanation too of
Hold on.
why
Okay, and
it's,
the pervious non-gravel is to minimize gravel that comes out onto the street and potentially pose a risk to windshields.
And does your motion include not being open during school dismissal periods? when
Yes,
school-
yes, I said dismissal periods or other busy school bus times.
We mentioned in our letter to the ZBA, they were open to more trucks in the future, seeing how this, just so they know our thought process and why we're recommending what we are.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly Jill's here, and we could say, please come back over the winter so you can be prepared for spring,
I think what you're trying to say is, look, you know what? We're not going to ask you to do a traffic study because we're going to let you run. We're going to let you walk, not run. 1 truck wasn't an imposition. We don't believe 2 additional trucks will be. But before we recommend 4, we want to see the impact of the total number of 3. That's how
As my spokesperson just said. No.
Right.
Could we get the
So I have a separate question. What kind of food safety requirements are they following? Because I've seen them drawing water from a spigot into the truck.
Right, but that's usually just to clean off something. Derek comes by all the time. They have to comply with all of the Board of Health requirements for food service. So you go in, every surface is cleaned, everything's disinfected. They have to use, they have to have their equipment at a certain temperature, all of it. They need to have I think there's like a milk and meat, I don't even know all the licenses you need, but you need to go through Derek, and Derek comes in and permits them.
Okay.
I apologize, Derek Fullerton, the Board of Health agent.
Okay, and for the record, there's nobody out there that wants to comment on that, right, Katrina? There's nobody out there on the
no,
record.
there is not.
Also, for the record, I am in a butter, technically, of this property because I'm in Fuller Pond. I'm really at the back of Fuller Pond. This does not affect me personally whatsoever. I have no kids or stepkids anymore at the school system at that level. And I believe I can rule on this fairly, and this does not affect me. other than as a general citizen of Middleton.
And the same goes for me, if you're comfortable with us voting on this, Joe.
I'm absolutely comfortable. That is not an issue.
Okay. So do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Who's that?
Jeff?
Okay. So I'll poll the board. Mr. Garber,
Yes?
Mr. DiGregorio,
Aye.
Mr. York,
Nay.
Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Thank you again for your attention, Mr. Hickta.
I love that, by the way.
Well, you know what? He's sitting here listening, I think, and that's one of the most difficult tasks ever.
Mr. Chairman, could I just say something about, you mentioned it a couple times, the ZBA doesn't listen. And since I've been here, I've witnessed them listening to your recommendations, but most of the time, they're really nothing, because in the past, the recommendations were just a positive recommendation or a negative recommendation, with no explanation of why it was positive or negative. So I think they will really appreciate you putting time and effort and detail into these. I'm hoping.
You made me feel so much better that they listen, but they just regard them as nothing.
Well, when they say nothing,
Is my
they do
grandmother come
disregard them. These
Well,
are good recommendations. I think they will appreciate them.
Glad they're listening. All right, so other business. Does anybody else have a comment or want to speak on what transpired so far? And can we move on? All right, number 3, other business. East Meadow, request to extend tripartite construction completion date.
Hello, Jill Mann, here on behalf of East Meadow LLC. We actually are in the process of trying to finish the roadway. We were held up this year. So if we pave, we still need to wait a time before we can go to get the road released. So we're seeking a 1-year extension. I did send over to Ms. O'Leary a signed consent from the bank saying that they will continue to hold the bond amount. And it is also signed by the proponent, East Meadow LLC. So that has been delivered, and I will deliver the original to Katrina, or I can leave it here, and Mr. McGlone, you're authorized to sign, so you could just stop by to sign. Except, you do sign it. Sign the tripartite accepting the extension for the 1-year period.
Okay, how many extensions have been previous to this?
1.
Okay, and typically it's been my understanding that you need the cooperation of the town meeting for an eventual signature, and that this is can be a seasonal issue.
This is a seasonal issue. Plus, this is East Meadow Road ends up tying into another road in Ridgewood Estates. So that's being worked on as well, and that's part of the issue. So we're trying to coordinate a whole bunch of things at one time to be able to complete East Meadow.
All right.
So the board can make this into one motion, but you want to approve that extension of the construction completion date to August 1st, 2021.
Yep.
Well, what other issues are there? Because on your agenda, that just really includes the August 1st extension date.
That's all there is. We're not even seeking a reduction in the disbursement.
All right, yeah. So there's only, Katrina, do you agree with me? There's only, at issue is only the vote to approve the request for extension of the construction completion date to August 1st, 2021.
Right. And I mean, I don't think they would have been ready. Well, they weren't ready this past May. There's a couple of things left to the cul-de-sac.
Exactly.
The sidewalk out on East Street has to be done. That goes from East Meadow to Peabody Street.
I don't think we're doing it. I think we're funding it, aren't we?
No, I think it was the installation.
Yeah, I thought it was redone and we gave, and there was money given to, we'll talk about it later. But there is either sidewalk contribution or work to be done.
Yeah, I think this one was specified that it be installed.
Yeah, I can't remember because I thought there was another conversation after that because it was going to, I just have to go back and see.
Do we know if it's an in-situ sidewalk or not? In other words, is it at the place or is this going?
No, off-site improvement.
All right, so it's off-site, and that has to be finished before this gets approved, correct?
Before the money gets released,
Yeah.
the town accepts, yes.
Right. And then we will get as-built too, but they have a whole year to do this now.
Does any other member of the board have a question or a comment with respect to East Meadow, the request to extend the tripartite construction completion date? And for the record, Katrina, there's nobody in queue.
There is not.
There is not anybody in queue. All right. So the chairperson will entertain a motion to allow an extension to the tripartite construction completion date for East Meadow to August 1st, 2021. And I hope I see you all there then. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Who at least one of you seconders have to identify yourself.
Brian Carroll.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. Garber,
Yes.
Mr. DiGregorio,
Aye.
Mr. York,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you very much. Could I ask one question too? Ms. O'Leary, I noticed that Cashman got taken off. Do you want me just to give you an update? Because I'm on that, like a quick one.
It's up to the chair. It was on the agenda. We took it off because they, I forget what happened.
Because
They weren't ready.
we're giving you the as-built, but the monument, well, I should ask, Mr. McGlone, would it be okay if I gave an informal explanation of what's going to happen with Cashman? Because you are going to see that next month.
We're all here. Please do.
Okay, so basically Cashman, which is that extension off of Old Essex, we have completed the subdivision in toto. Everything is done, but the one thing where there's these monuments that have to get placed on each lot, those are being placed on Friday. So we couldn't complete the as-built plan to present to you and to present to the DPW so that they could confirm that everything has been done, which is the only reason it's not on your agenda tonight. So it will be on your agenda in the September meeting.
Excellent. Thank you. And Katrina, when's the September meeting so we can all put it in our diary?
September 14th, 2020.
September 14th.
Do you believe it's almost September? Man, it's time flown.
Like I said, this brook outback, you know, it's a dying mud flat, and I look forward to September because the water will start rushing through it.
There you go.
You know, are there any items not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting that I don't know of?
Don't have any.
Okay, is there any other business? Nope. And we do not need a second for this. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're out.
Thank you very much, everybody. Take care. Have a good rest of the summer.
Good night.
Thanks.
Hey.
Good night.